Hello, everybody. Let's get into the big thing. Before I actually get into everything, I hope you're doing well. I have a couple of announcements before we begin everything, and then I'm going to follow it up with a little bit of how to use Screencast-O-Matic if you've not been watching the videos. But the big topic for today, let's see what's happening here, is this. The online informative speech grading criteria. It took me some time to develop it because we've never really been put in this situation before. There is a hybrid Speech 1 class, but never been a fully online Speech 1 class. So I had to tinker with the grading criteria to adjust it, and that took me some time. I want to start off, though, before I get into that, with a couple of announcements. The first announcement is, if you've not already heard, remote instruction, what we've been doing, it's going to continue. In fact, it's going to be the rest of spring, which means that we will not see each other again face to face, unfortunately. We will only be communicating through these means all the way until the end of the semester. Also, if you've not also heard, remote instruction will continue in the summer as well. This means that some classes that cannot be done remotely will probably not happen. The school is doing its best to make sure that they can convert everything online, but certain things like dance classes, if you were hoping to take a dance class or something like that, those probably will not happen in the summer, and we're trying to figure out what we're going to do in the fall. My hunch is that there will continue to be remote instruction even in the fall. It might not be as severe, but it might be intermittent in case the numbers spike again. So I hope you're prepared for that as well. And the school is, for the most part, closed to the students without special permission to get on campus. Even the faculty, like myself, I can't be on campus unless there is special permission. One last announcement, too. Spring break. So this week is spring break, and the school is observing spring break, which means that if a teacher assigns you something over the break or tries to have a class meeting with you, like they're still doing that synchronous teaching, they should not be doing that. They're not allowed to do that. So you should tell them that. So the spring break is being observed throughout this week. I am not going to try to communicate with you during this break, but I do want you to know that when we come back, your speech is due. So it's most likely that you'll be using your spring break to do multiple recordings of yourself until you get this thing right. Speaking of which, let's talk about that. Okay, so when it comes to this informative speech grading criteria, I broke it down into a couple of things, and each of them is worth a certain percent of your grade. Here's an overview. Support, which is your source citations, is 10% of your grade. Structure, which we'll talk about, is 15% of the grade. The PowerPoint presentation is 25% of this grade. The delivery is 25% of the grade. The overall presentation, which I'll explain again, is 25% of the grade. And penalties, they will vary from 5 to 10%. So let's just hop right into it. Support, 10%. Support are two things. Your source citations, you need to have 6 of them, and also each source citation you provide needs to sound credible or has a credibility statement if needed. Please understand that because this is 10% of the grade, if you provide for me a source but it does not sound credible, you lose a percentage point. It's almost a 1-to-1 ratio for every source that you do not provide, you lose 1 to 2%. So make sure that you have at least 6 sources and that all 6 sources sound credible. Next, structure. Structure are all of the basic mechanics that we've talked about that you should know in your sleep by now, hopefully. It's fine if you don't, I get it. But first is your attention device. You have to have a strong, captivating start. This will include delivery and writing. So the content, what you've written, I'll take that into account, but you have to perform it well also, otherwise you will not get the full percentage point on this one. The next one is a clear topic reveal. There needs to be a moment where I fully understand what this topic is about. I especially like it when you deliver it in such a way that it comes at the end of the sentence and it comes with impact and power and some presentation. I've already talked about the design of a topic revelation statement, but if you have questions, just feel free to ask, send me an email. There should be a significant statement. A lot of you have written into this. I didn't even have to explain it. Just by showing you the 2 examples that had significant statements, a lot of you caught on and were like, oh, this is exactly what that is. And you wrote good ones. So please continue to make sure that it's in the actual presentation. Next up is a preview. We all know what that means. It should be a preview of your main points. You should have transitions throughout, in between each of the main points, and if needed, also in between the subpoints if needed. There should be a review, which basically restates the main points, the preview, and then finally a strong ending with a good lasting thought, which just like in the beginning, the content matters, what you write I'll take into account, but you need to deliver it really well. And all of those things, I think there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, those 7 points make up the structure. And again, it's like a 1 to 2 ratio, which means that for each thing that's missing, you'll lose up to 1.5 to 2 percentage points. If it's not done well, then you'll start losing points too. All right, next up, the PowerPoint presentation. So this is just a reflection of the criteria for the first draft of the PowerPoint presentation, which also went into the final draft. So none of this should be new to you. In fact, you all should have done these things and they should be very familiar. The first is that you should display the major structural points in the PowerPoint, which means that the PowerPoint should state your topic, it should state the preview and the review, and also the subpoints as they come up. Whoops. The PowerPoint should display the structural points in sync with the oral presentation, which means that yes, you could display them all at once, but that would defeat the purpose of it. They should pop up as you get to them, much like how I am now talking about the PowerPoint presentation, and so the PowerPoint slide has popped up, right? So, that is basically what that means. The PowerPoint should display the name and date of your sources as those pop up too, and also the sources should display in sync with the oral presentation as well, which means that when you mention a source, it should pop up on the PowerPoint presentation on the screen in sync with what you've been saying. So that way it matches, it's synchronized. You should also make use of imagery to help the audience better understand and or remember the ideas of the speech. And this kind of goes without saying. If you're wondering how many images should I have, there's no specific number. If you had one per main point, fine. But it's really about, do you have an image? Is there a need for it? And is it a good image? So keep that in mind, because you're already going to be using imagery throughout the speech by having a PowerPoint presentation for all of the main points and subpoints, etc. You need to animate the text in the slides so that the lines and photos display one at a time or when spoken about in the oral presentation. The animation is much like what you're seeing right here. So watch the screen, boom, 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 boom. See how they all just appear when I want them to appear? You should do that as well. I mentioned this in a previous lecture on how to do that. If you're still confused, just send me an email or something. We can maybe Zoom conference and I can show it to you in person, so to speak, with my screen. Finally, use minimal text, which means write as little as possible onto the PowerPoint. Okay, let's go to the next criteria, which is delivery. So this was a little tricky. Yeah, because it's an online presentation. You'll see what I mean as I go through it. The first thing is you should not appear to be reading most of the speech. You are allowed to use a note card or something like that to help you out. But for the most part, because it's a recording, you should just record it, do multiple recordings until you get it right. I don't mind if I won't be able to see what is around your laptop, obviously, but it needs to appear as if you were looking at the camera, which will make it feel like you're looking at me. So that's going to give me the sense of, are you reading or not? Please keep that in mind. That's our eye contact online. That's one of the adjustments I had to make. Good facial communication. This is not usually on my grading criteria, although I think it's a given. But given our first speech, I decided that basically all of you were very good at body control. So I'm not going to require you to stand up far away from the camera so that I can see most of your body to, basically grade you on how well you're controlling your hands and your legs, etc. I will let you give this speech sitting down, but that means that your face is really important because that's going to do most of the communication. If that's the case, then I need to make sure that you're using good facial communication, right? Which means you're aware of what your face is doing. And I mentioned this before, that some of you, when you sent your videos in through Flipgrid or other means, that it looked like your face died. Please do not make it look like your face died. Use your face appropriately to communicate well. Good vocal dynamic, that goes without saying. You have your ups and we talked about this, volume, up and down, etc. Volume should not even be an issue for you at this point, but there should be a sense of energy. So you shouldn't be like whispering your whole speech to the camera. Good enunciation and pronunciation. There's a difference between the two things. If you're not aware, look it up. But for the most part, enunciation has to do with the how well you're hitting your consonants and vowels. Pronunciation has to do with if you're accurately saying the word the way it's supposed to be said. Few vocalized pauses. So within the speech itself, I'll be sort of counting or keeping along with all of your ums and your likes and ands and so's and buts and everything else. If the number gets high, your grade starts to get lower. Again, it's a recording, right? So do it as many times until you feel like, wow, I don't have any vocalized pauses in that one, or very minimal, and then submit that recording to me. The only thing about this recording is that it has to be one shot all the way through, so you can't edit out things. But otherwise, you can record as many of those one shots, as you want until you get it right. All right, now we're moving to the overall presentation. This is 25% of your grade as well. Are you easy to follow and understand? Which is one of the primary directives of an informative speech. And for the most part, the outlines were fairly easy to follow and understand, so just be that way when you're delivering it. And then finally, were you engaging? I gave you a whole lecture on different engagement devices. I advocated that you take out content to make space for those engagement devices, which include stories, visuals, etc. Please be engaging. Notice that this presentation grade is 25%, and there's only 2 criteria here, which means that if you were not engaging, like literally just your cardboard, you're going to lose 12.5% of your grade. I don't normally bring it all the way down to 0, but if you're super boring, I might be tempted to. So just don't be super boring. And same thing with easy to follow and understand. Don't be overcomplicated, because that will also hurt your grade in a detrimental way, given that this is so much of the grade and there's only 2 criteria here. Now, let's go to penalties. We have multiple penalties here. The first is over or under time. You really should not be, given that it's a recording. Please do not submit a video that is over or under time. Do not drop the ball. Again, don't submit a video where you drop the ball. If you did, I'm guessing that you dropped the ball on all of them and this was your best one, but please do not submit a video where you drop the ball. Multiple long lost pauses. Those are the moments where you don't know what's coming next. You seem lost. Again, just keep recording until you get one full take where you do not seem lost, and you should be fine. FaceTime. This is a new one. I want 20 seconds of just your face in each of the main points, and I definitely want to see you at the beginning and at the end of the speech. So this is an example of that. You all are seeing me on the bottom of the screen, but every once in a while when you get into a main point and you have to explain something, you come back to the big screen where it's just you, and I don't see your PowerPoint anymore. Now, just to clarify, the 20 seconds in each main point, it's a rough, number. I just want to see enough of you where I feel like, oh, you're making eye contact, you're not just reading something the entire time, and I connect with you again. But I do not need to see you for 20 seconds at the beginning. What I meant is I want to see you at the beginning, and I want to see you at the end, but the attention device does not have to be 20 seconds of your face. And the lasting thought does not have to be 20 seconds of your face. But when you give your attention device and your lasting thought, that should really just be you on the screen and not your PowerPoint presentation for the most part. And then, just check in with us again when we get to your main point so that I don't feel left out. All right. Last one, if you are more persuasive than informative in your speech, you get a 5 to 10% deduction depending on the severity. The 10% deduction is if you just were not listening to me at all and you totally created a persuasive speech. The 5% deduction is you were trying to be informative, but you accidentally became persuasive despite all of the advice and the comments that I gave you on the outline. So watch out for that. All right, Screencast-O-Matic. If you've not been using it, it's actually really easy. I'm going to shift to a different screen here. Within Canvas, they actually offer Screencast-O-Matic. I didn't know it was there until recently, so I put it in there. I've put it right under syllabus here. Once you click on that, it's really easy to set up the account. Just use your Pasadena email, and then you can get going. And I think if you've not used it before, it's very easy to use. Once you finish recording, you can upload it to YouTube and then send me the link. And that's what you're going to do. That's basically it. Let me know if you have any questions or concerns. I will still be available and try to answer everything as quickly as I can. Okay. Otherwise, take care and have a good break.